What is up, YouTube? It is JavaScript with Joe. We're on day 2 now, and thank you for joining. To those of you that don't know, this is sort of aimed at people generally who can't code or are very new to JavaScript, so I'll be breaking down a lot of what I'm doing, unless whatever challenge we're doing is maybe too stressful, but there are plenty of other videos on this channel aimed at that level as well. To those of you that aren't familiar, this is Advent of Code, so they launch a sort of daily Christmas challenge every December, and my plan is every Wednesday at 4 p.m. GMT we'll be going through one of those and trying to beat them, but potentially failing as well, as that is a very normal part of programming. I'll also be using this website called replit.com. This is just somewhere where you can write JavaScript or Python or whatever other languages you want without actually needing to install anything on your machine. Also means I can share the code quite easily at the end. So this is what I'll be using, and you're welcome to use it as well. You should be able to see the links in the live chat on the side already anyway. So without further ado, let's get started. Day 2, dive. Now you need to figure out how to pilot this thing. It seems like the submarine can take a series of commands like forward 1, down 2, or up 3. Forward x increases the horizontal position by x units, down x increases the depth by x units, up x decreases the depth by x units. Note that since you're on a submarine, down and up affect your depth, and so they have the opposite result of what you might expect, so it sort of increments your depth. The submarine seems to already have a planned course, which is our puzzle input, so every one of these puzzles will have a unique puzzle input to your account, so my answer won't be your answer if you're running alongside, but my code should also solve your input. So here's an input. It's obviously hundreds of lines long, a bit more complicated than what we might be expecting, and we've got an example input here, which will probably be our first sort of test case. Your horizontal position and depth both start at 0, so that's probably worth keeping track of. And all I'm doing here is I'm pasting those lines in and using my JavaScript file like a sort of notepad. So by adding these slashes to the front, it grays out, meaning that when I click this play button, none of that's going to break my code. And over here we have what's called a REPL, so we can write some code here and it will read our input. Whoops, 2 plus 2. It'll read that input, evaluate it to 4, it'll print that when I press enter, and it will loop, so it will just keep asking us for more and more JavaScript code, which is sort of how the JavaScript code will run in the end. It'll execute all those things somewhat line by line, but there are ways we can change that. But for now, just imagine this file will run line by line. Okay, so we've got some comments in there. These steps will do the following. So forward will add 5 to our horizontal position to a new total of 5. Down will add 5 to our depth, resulting in a value of 5. Forward adds 8. Up will decrease depth by 3. Down will add 8. Seems fairly straightforward. After following all these instructions, we then have a horizontal position of 15 and depth of 10. Multiplying these together will produce 150. Calculate your horizontal position and depth. What do you get if you multiply them together? Doesn't sound too hard. We're going to have to sort of process this input into effectively an if statement for forward, down, and up. Something that's quite common with these Advent of Code challenges is once you finish them, they'll add another step that will sort of punish you for taking an easy route in the earlier steps. So looking at this, I'm imagining that maybe there would be a backward command, or negative numbers could be provided even though they're not provided in this test case, or we could be asked to turn left and right, for example. So anything that will give us more of a grid system will probably help us in the long run. But for now, let's see if we can just get this bit working. Okay, so we're probably going to want to store, well, we could store a coordinate. So we could have like an XY grid system, something like that, or we could separately store what we would call depth and horizontal position. Doesn't really make sense there. In fact, it's not even coordinates x and y, is it? Because it's coordinates in x and z. So maybe for now, let's only focus on depth and sort of horizontal distance moved. We can't just write these words, we actually need to define them as what we call variables. So a variable is anything that lets us sort of store a value for later. So I could have a variable called my age, and we can use this keyword var. So var for variable my age, which is a name I'm giving a variable. And then we use equals, which in JavaScript is called an assignment operator. So we're effectively going to put a value inside this variable called my age. So you could perceive that as an arrow if that helps. And my age is 27. And I can access that age variable at any point, which will give me the value that we stored in that age variable. So I can do stuff now like my age plus my age. I could redefine my age to be lower if I wanted to, and that will update it. So it's just a useful way for sort of storing information in more sort of human readable terms, I suppose. So the new thing we learned there was this var keyword. So if I do var depth equals 0 and var horizontal seems like a rubbish name, but I'll take any recommendations in the chat if there are any for a better one. So if I click this run button now, it should declare those variables for me, though we won't see them because I haven't actually done anything with them. I haven't printed them out, but they are there. They are holding 0, and they will autocomplete if we type tab. Again, we could overwrite them if we wanted to, but this will all disappear unless we overwrite it in the actual code we're writing over here. Okay, so next we probably want something that's gonna let's write an input actually. So we can say var input is equal to, and in here we can write all of our values. So I'm putting quotes because they're strings. So if we didn't do this, it would probably break because it's looking for a variable called forward and a variable called 5, and these aren't allowed or defined. Forward 8, up 3, whoops, down 8, and forward 2. So this sort of input is small enough that I can kind of write it out myself and it's not going to cause me any problems. So if I write input again, there we go, there's those values. Some things that are new there, obviously strings are wrapped in quotes, so we've not even talked about different types of variables, but if we do something like 2 plus 2, we know when we see that those are numbers, and we know the rules associated with adding those numbers together. But if I did something like cat plus dog, you've probably never seen something like that before in your life unless you're already a programmer, but JavaScript will infer that you want to concatenate those two strings. It's kind of come up with its own rule for, well, JavaScript hasn't, but JavaScript, the people who wrote JavaScript have decided that this is what people mean when they try and add strings together. So we can actually see the type of things. So if we give them 2, it'll say it's a number. If we give them one of those cat strings, it'll say string. And there's another type that's incredibly useful called arrays or lists. It sort of changes depending on what language you're in, but let's see what it thinks type of input is. So they call it an object. Is that an object? Well, there you go, I'm learning something about JavaScript. So apparently these lists are I don't think that's right. Again, I checked that elsewhere, but the point here is, I guess a list is just an object with indexes for keys. This is just a list of anything we want it to be, but in my case it's a list of strings. And the perk here is that we can essentially iterate over that list. So I could do something like input.forEach, then say, I could say string, oh, this is what I did before, let's just print each. Do I need to? I did this last week and my friend corrected me that you don't need an arrow function for a for each, so I might Google that actually and just see how we access stuff. They use an arrow function. I'll use an arrow function anyway. So for each string, I'm just going to print out that string, console.log strings. This is JavaScript's equivalent of a print function. And now that will print them out line by line. So what we've effectively got here is we've written something that will let us iterate over these commands. Now we need some logic that's going to convert those commands into something we can actually make use of. So looking at this, there's a separation between, I guess, what we could call our keyword and maybe a value or an operator and an operand. So the first thing I want to do is probably split these into those keywords. So I would say string.split, I think, and this is a function that will let us pick a character to split on, so it could be a hyphen, but here we've got a space in between, and I'm going to use that to split. Is it complaining about the use of string? Oh no, because I'm already returning something when I don't need to. So that won't go anywhere, but I could return that instead. So let's do that. So now instead of forward, we've got new lists with the first item in that list being the command and the second item in that list being the value we need as a string. We should probably store that, so we can we create new variables like variable command and value equals string.split. So this will take the first item in that list and assign it to our variable command, and the second item in our list and assign it to the value. Not a great name either, but that should be okay. And then again, I can now log out command plus value, and this will just concatenate them immediately. So we'll just get undefined forward. Am I printing out something somewhere else? It's probably because I'm using this arrow function when I shouldn't be. Because I'm not. It's trying to return the whole object. That shouldn't be causing a print error. I guess maybe let's split these out so I can figure out if that undefined is just part of the command. Yeah. Oh. So I'm expecting it to print just forward and... Whoa. Okay, so it's not actually getting those two values separately. Maybe that was premature. So let's go, I don't know, var split equals that, and then access those items individually instead. So then I'll do var command equals split 0. That should get the first item. And then I'll do var value equals split 1. That will get the second item, which will be the number. And I probably want to convert that to a string. I think I can just call this parseInt function. So we've not used many functions yet, but this is just a function that exists everywhere in JavaScript. It's very common that we'll want to turn something back into a number. And then that should all work now. There we go. So we got forward and down. So I can put those on the same line, and we'll see a problem with that string concatenation, which is that we don't assume any strings, any spaces, sorry. So we can add a space in there. There are better ways we can do this, and I'll go into them later. But for now, we're just iterating over everything and printing it out. So next we need to split what we do. We also need to store, we've got our depth and total here. So the next thing we need to check is, first case, every time we find a forward, we need to use that value. So we can just do a if command if command equals forward. So this is new. This is what's called a Boolean comparison. So we're comparing the value in our command to this string and saying, is it roughly equal to? So it should be for forward, but it shouldn't be for down and up. That will evaluate to true, and when that's true, it'll run this code. So when that's the case, we want to increment our horizontal equals horizontal plus value, which will be 5 for the first case. So if we do all that and we log out at the end depth, we will get, what is it, 13, 15 we should get. Oops, shouldn't be depth plus 5, should be depth plus depth. We still get 0 because I should be doing horizontal, not depth, sorry. There we go, so we get horizontal 15 at the end. While we're here, we may as well log out depth as well, since we're going to need that later. Depth, depth. So we're getting depth, and so our horizontal is correct, our depth is not correct, and we can actually rewrite this using a shorthand for JavaScript. So we can do horizontal plus equals value. Those mean the same thing, so this is just a shorthand for that sum. So horizontal is solved. Doing all right for 15 minutes in as well. What is next? So next, I'm just working through this. So next I'm going to deal with down. So else if command equals down depth plus equals value. And that should give us somewhat an accurate depth. So we get all the way to 13, but we haven't dealt with going up. So I think we should be looking for a 10 at this point. Oh, what are we looking for? Yeah, 10 at the end. Sorry, just reporting somebody on the chat again. I got so excited to see somebody send a message in the chat then, and it was just that same thing from last week. Okay, so all we're missing now is that this up needs to be dealt with, but again, we've kind of got the right framework for that here already. We've got command equals up, and now instead of incrementing, we can decrement, which again, there's a shorthand form, minus equals value. So there we go, we've got 15 and 10. Console.log our answer, which will be, I guess we can do the maths here, depth times horizontal. That should give us 150, which is the correct answer for this test case. So next we need to find a way to read this in file as a file so that we can read in the whole puzzle input. I'm going to tidy up some of this stuff with some more modern syntax while we're here though. So we've seen variables before, but more recently we can use let and const. So const is for values that will basically never change. Let is for values that will be changing. So we can change all our vars to lets, except the input, which shouldn't change once it arrives. We can also use some string templating. So here we could use backticks instead, and this will let us effectively write the string as we're expecting it to look and wrap it in this $sign, so that will let us use those variables in place in the string they're going to be written in. So we should do the same below, and we can run all the maths we want to run in there as well. Answer. So this doesn't really change the way any of our code works, it's just refactoring it, so it should be identical in execution, but hopefully a bit easier to read. Next we could do, what else could we do here? I guess we could define these outside the loop, but I'm pretty happy with that for now. Oh, there's a string here as well. Command plus value. Okay. I think I'm pretty happy with that. We could move out some of this other stuff, but I think that'll do. So next we need to read in So read in file line by line to list JavaScript. This is effectively what you'll need for pretty much every single Advent of Code challenge. So we'll probably need something like this, a little one-liner. We'll also need to, again, REPL will let us do a bunch of other stuff here, like import libraries we might need, add extra files. So I'm going to do an input.txt here. And this is where I'm going to put my test case, which is this. And our goal now is to try and read that into this format instead of writing it ourselves. So I'll just use this little snippet here. That needs to be an input. That needs to be, const. And if I run that and it doesn't break, already declared. If I run that and it doesn't, well, it will. Can I still access input? No. Okay. Let's just call it input2 for now so we can see if it works. No? FS is not defined. Okay, that's making more sense. So we need to import FS, which is our sort of file reading library. Do I need to import it? No. That should do what I want. Maybe that's not available in REPL there. Oh, the file I'm looking for doesn't exist as well. That should be input.txt. But, that was the problem. Okay. I mean, this is programming where like the error probably told me exactly what I needed to do, but there was a lot going on there. Input2 won't be in the format I'm hoping it's in. So it's read the whole thing as a string, and you can see this weird character here. So this is called an escape character. So that's actually a new line. So in our file, it actually counts this character as pressing an enter as a new line character, and our editors format that. What we can do is use again this split function that we saw before to split all of our file, our string on that new line, and that should give us the same format we're looking for here. So /n, nope, wrong /n. So now input2 should be the same as input. Looks good to me. So now we don't need this anymore. Do I actually need that, or is it gonna? Yeah, we do need that. Okay. That was working a second ago, wasn't it? How weird. What did I? Oh, needs to be input instead of input2. So weird that it's complaining about FS being missing, but again, I'm probably not reading it correctly. Okay, so that looks good to me. I think we're ready to submit for the first half. So if I replace this with the full input now, and there we go. So we've got a depth of 998, horizontal of 1993, and we've got an answer here. So we can try submitting that now. So we get the submit box here. Got the right answer, first try. Thank you very much, YouTube. Thanks for all your help, chat. Okay, so part 2. So, based on your calculations, the plan course doesn't seem to make any sense. You find the submarine manual and discover that the process is actually slightly more complicated. In addition to horizontal position and depth, you'll also need to track a third value, aim, which also starts at 0. The command also means something entirely different than you first thought. Down X increases your aim by X units. Up X decreases your aim by X units. Forward does two things. It increases your horizontal position by X units and increases your depth by your aim multiplied by X. So it's sort of, I suppose it's like a tilt on the submarine that we don't have access to before. Shouldn't really be a problem. It just means that instead of using value, we have to use the aim. So yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. So we can take our easier input again and work through this test case here. So let's go back to that. we're going to need an aim variable, as we've seen. So let aim equals 0. We're going to need basically to implement this in our if statements, but that doesn't sound too spooky to me. Okay, so we've got, maybe let's move these into each of these as well. Up. Forward does two things. Okay. So we just need to make these true, and our first case is that we need to work with forward 5. So forward still adds 5 to our horizontal position because the aim is 0. So we're lucky there that that's correct. Down adds 5 to our aim, which isn't what's happening now. So down is now aim equals aim plus equals value. Down, yeah, we've done that. Forward will now use our aim times the value we move forward by. So horizontal is still plus equal to value. Depth is now plus equal to value times aim. So I think that should give us this. Then up decreases our aim. So same as we did here, but with negative. Aim is now minus equal to value. And I think that should be it. So if I log that, at least we'll get our log out. So it's looking good. We've got 900 for our answer, which is what we got there. Maybe it's worth logging out our aim as well here at every step. Aim, just so we can verify it as we go. So we've got our, oh, it does it at the end, but our aim does end at 10. I mean, I'm pretty happy with that. It's not as visual as it could be, but for now I'll take it. So our puzzle input should still be the same as before. And we're just looking for the same thing there. So there we go, big numbers. That's the right answer. That was easy. 27 minutes, geez. Okay, well, there we go. That's day 2 finished. And thank you for joining me. I don't know if there's anything else I'd tidy up. I mean, if anything, I'd probably get rid of a lot of these comments, I suppose. So let's say horizontal, depth, and aim start at 0. We've got this bit reading in our puzzle input. This is for each value in our puzzle input. I suppose string is probably not a great input here, so why don't we call that something like instruction, since that's more realistic. We are redefining these variables every time, so we could outside here define our sort of command variables. So we can say let's split command value. I don't know if I need to assign them any values. That should mean I don't need to redeclare them every time I run the loop. Yep. Values for the loop. This could probably be moved out into a little function as well. So why don't we do that? We've not written any functions. So def split instruction. So that's a function name. That's going to take a instruction. Makes sense. Oh, that's Python. I'm really sorry. Const split instruction equals. Did I just get another message then? Oh, I got a thank you from Lucy. Thank you, Lucy. It's not over yet. I'm just doing a bit more tidying up. Apologies. So that is going to return the instruction.split, we can basically move all this outside of the function. Return instruct, no it's not, return, let's bring this in. In fact, now split shouldn't exist outside, so we should probably do let split, even though we're now making a variable every time, and then return split 0 and split 1. And let's command value. Now we can say command value is equal to split instruction, and we don't need this line. We've still got that logging there, though we could get rid of it. Then our if loop, if based on instruction, I guess command is what we've been calling it. Okay, and then I think I'm pretty happy with that, unless anyone else has any recommendations. That should still be giving me the same number. Oh no. I've broken it somewhere. What did I do there? I think this was not something I can do the way I think I can. Log split 0. So that should give me just my instruction. Just the instruction looks fine. Why is that not returning? Maybe I can't return like this. Or am I accessing split or something that I don't have? Looks okay to me. Why is this? So here command is not what I think it is. Can I do that? JavaScript doesn't support functions that return multiple values. And then I can use destructuring, so I can do it. It's just not like this. I can do something like this. Okay. So in here I could return. So I basically have to write the same code, so let command. I don't think this is better now, I'm doing it like this, so split 0, let value equals split 1, and then return command value, pass int value. No, let's do pass int here. And I need the destructuring as well. This is all a bit of a mess. I don't think I should have done this now that I'm looking at it. So command value equals do I need that let? Damn it. Okay. I'm not sure if that's more readable. Though I've definitely sort of separated out this concern from the core loop. I could probably write a function for all this as well. You know, like make decision. But again, I'd just be playing with the sort of these global variables that I probably shouldn't be as well. I think I'll leave it there. Cool. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for watching. Bye. See you next week. Every Wednesday, 4 p.m. GMT for JavaScript with Joe.